record of sportsmen and women who had won international laurels over the years. But sadly, this has somehow waned, resulting in poor performances at many global events. An example is the 2012 Olympic Games, where the national team, well, we'd rather leave that alone for now. Well, analysts attribute this decline to factors such as a lack of will to develop grassroots sports and the same old problem of corruption. Well, the way out, as experts say, is for innovative and foresighted administration that will encourage sports at the grassroots level. Now, is Nigeria on the path of regaining its past glory in sports with the just concluded National Sports Festival held in Abuja in mind? These are some of the issues we'll be considering tonight. Yes, it's all about sports tonight, but first, let's get to see this report by Ayodeji Makinde.
When the torch of the National Sports Festival went off following the conclusion of ECO 2012, expectations were high on what was to come at CALABAR 2014. This never came to reality as Cross River State government could not host the fiesta, regarded as Nigeria's version of the Olympics. After waiting for 6 years in which athletes had competed in 3 National Youth Games, 2 Commonwealth Games, 2 Africa Youth Games, 2016 Rio Olympics and other continental and global championships, experts opine that hosting the National Sports Festival within this period would have helped prepare the athletes better. Worried by the reluctance of states to host the festival, the Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Solomon Dalung, at the National Council of Sports meeting which held in Kaduna earlier in February 2018, announced that the National Sports Festival will hold in Abuja in December. Speculations grew over the readiness of the Federal Capital Territory to host the festival, considering the state of the Abuja National Stadium. As the months rolled over, 17 committees were inaugurated. Power and water supply returned to the stadium, and the mascot for the championship was unveiled in Abuja. The opening ceremony on the 6th December saw the convergence of at least 7,000 athletes to compete for medals in 40 individual and team events. Over the 10 memorable days, most actions held in packages A and B of the Abuja National Stadium, as well as the Aguyi Ibronsi cantonment. Records were broken as new champions emerged in both team and individual events. Ese Brume leaped 6.62 meters to win the long jump gold medal in a new festival record.
A 20-year-old record in swimming was broken. We have 42 records in weightlifting, 15 swimming and 2 in para-power lifting. What is the implication of this? It means the federations now have a lot of work on their hands to pick on these athletes that have broken records and nurture them to stardom.
Similarly, table tennis events saw greats Segun Toriola and Funke Oshonaike competing for Team Akwa Ibom State knockouts in the mixed doubles. While Toriola defeated Ganiyu Ashimiyu to win the singles gold medals after his maiden appearance at the Kwara 85 Sports Festival, Oshonaike was halted in the quarterfinals by 19-year-old Nimota Aregbeshola. Amidst these record-breaking and upsets, Team Delta was in the mix, winning a minimum of 10 gold medals on daily basis. The 1 gold medal, 1 million naira reward was pivotal. One news everyone was eager to hear during the closing ceremony was the next destination of the festival.
Edo State is hereby awarded the hosting rights for the 20th National Sports Festival to be held in 2020. We have the capacity and the capability to host the games. We have perhaps one of the best governance systems in sports in this country, in Edo State.
For now, the torch goes off till the 20th edition of the Sports Festival, which comes alive in the year 2020 in Benin City, Edo State. But How confident are we that the prestige and reputation of the festival would be enhanced come Edo 2020? Have the values of the championship been sustained despite the rescue by the federal government to host the fiesta? How does the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development intend to monitor and nurture emerging talents who shattered records at this year's fiesta? These and more would be addressed by our guests tonight on Tuesday Live.
All right, and that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's introduce our guest to you for tonight. We're happy to welcome to this program the Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Solomon Dalung. Minister, thanks for being here.
Unfortunately, I'm looking different today.
Yes, well, so this one is a kaftan wearing minister, not what Nigerians are used to seeing. All right. Okay, but it's the Minister of Sports, all right. It's you, all right.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, thanks for being here. Let me also welcome to this program the Permanent Secretary in the Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports Development, Olushade Adeshola. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much. It's my
Right.
pleasure.
Okay. Now, joining us from our Lagos Network Center, we have Enefiok Udobong, a former Olympian. He's also a regular, an NTA sports parliamentarian. Thanks for being with us tonight.
I'm glad to be here. Good evening.
Also sitting next to Enefiok in our Lagos Network Center, you probably have guessed it by now, Hamid Adio, former national and African champion 100 meters, former commissioner of sports in Kwara State, former general manager NTA Sports, and of course, a veteran sports journalist. Hamid, it's so good to see you. It's been a while. Right, thanks. Okay. Well, and as we usually do, we acquaint you with the procedure on today's program. Yes, we're talking sports, and we certainly know that so many people, so many Nigerians will be interested in tonight's topic. So let's refresh your memories. At the appropriate time, you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. The various platforms will be on your screen, particularly for those who will be phoning in tonight. Do us a favor, when you get through, turn down the volume of your TV set so that we all avoid the hurlback or the echo. It's just a simple way to avoid that echo. Turn down the volume of your TV set. And the best way to know that your call is through to the studio is you'll see your name appear on screen. Now, once that happens, it means your call is through to the studio. So just go right ahead with your question or comment, and let's just encourage you to keep it short and straight to the point so that others can also get on the platform. We do expect that so many people will be joining in this discussion tonight, because this is one thing Nigerians love to talk about: sports development. So, welcome once again to NTA Tuesday Live. Sports. Yes, let's start. We've just rounded off a national sports festival. And so, let's start by asking, what are your impressions of that festival? And we'll build up from there and find out just how it went. Minister.
Well, let me begin by saying that, well, the 19th National Sports Festival, otherwise known as Abuja 2018, was indeed one of the historic feats in sports development, because we are coming from 6 years of non-hosting of the festival, meaning that we have about 3 generations of athletes that were denied the opportunity of expressing their talents and even advancing to the next level. But to God be the glory. When we took the decision, the question was it going to be possible for the ministry with the FCT to organize a national sports festival in 9 months, knowing too well that it takes 2 years to organize the festival. The permanent secretary asked me whether we can do it, in view of the fact that he is coming into the ministry new. And I said, well, with determination in life, even 3 days you can succeed. All that takes to drive a process is determination. I said, look, even if we are going to have 2 or 3 states gathering in Abuja, let us first revive and reclaim the National Sports Festival before we'll begin to look at where we'll build on it. And what turned out at the end of the day was something we never even anticipated. One, the excitement that even states demonstrated in participating during the DRM was something else. At the DRM, we were expecting over 10,000 from the declaration of interest from both the states. But at the close of events, we ended up with about 8,622 athletes and officials. And that was about the largest in the history of the National Sports Festival. And when the festival started with the opening ceremony, on that day again, something happened unique. We circulated sufficient invitation. I addressed the National Economic Council where the governors were in attendance, and I solicited their support. I also told them of the policy direction of the ministry that no delegation should leave the state without being escorted by security, in view of the experience we had in the National Youth Games where a contingent was attacked by robbers. And the governors shown commitment. But unfortunately, too, coming to the implementation of their commitment, we had this challenge of states not giving the necessary support. But of course, the determination and the zeal in the athletes moved most of them to come. The bottom line is that Abuja 2018 was a huge success.
Okay, we'll look at so many aspects of it, but let's come to the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry. Yes, you were a little bit concerned, as the Minister said, 6 years since the last one held. That should worry anyone, shouldn't it?
That is it, certainly. You know, the first concern was the institutional memory to drive the process would largely be lacking, because the current directors in the ministry would likely be at assistant director or deputy director level when the last NSF was held. And at that level, the degree of involvement in the planning and implementation process will not be as deep to enable them know what was happening. But with the strong support of the Honorable Minister and his drive, we commenced the process. We went back to the records. We were able to pick the process one after the other. First, the main organizing committee was flagged off. Remember, it was a decision of the National Council on Sport that, Honorable Minister, please appeal to His Excellency the President for federal government to host this 19th National Sport Festival. Now, we needed a host state, which we did not have. FCT did not bid to host. So we needed now to make an overture to FCT. FCT, please accept to host this festival. They accepted the offer upon the approval of His Excellency. So having got a host state, now the next stage is set up the main organizing committee, host it, set up the local organizing committee. With these two bodies, we can now drive the process. If FCT had bidded as a host state, then we would have naturally assumed the responsibility of a host state. But because they did not bid, it has to be negotiated. Secondly, this responsibility came after the budgeting process, which means we must source funding by all means to do it. Both the FCT that accepted to host and even the federal government that is also hosting. This appeared insurmountable because of the stringent budgetary process that has been implemented. But with commitment, and an appeal was made to the federal government, and His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari accepted to fund it. So we said, okay, good, we have a starting point to go. One event followed another, and it culminated to the opening ceremony.
All right. We'll raise other issues, but let's go over to our network center in Lagos. And the next question I'm putting through, I'd like both Nefiok and Hamid to respond to that. But let's start with Nefiok. In our opening statements, we said Nigerians are sports-loving people, and we recalled some of the glorious days. And all the time you hear that Nigerians are united when it comes to sports. Now, if this carries any ring of truth, are you surprised or worried that for 6 years we could not put together a sports festival at national level that's supposed to bring up new talents? How worrying is this? How worrisome is it?
Thank you very much, Cyril. Yes, it is worrisome, but we must also understand that within those 6 years, we had had the National Youth Games, which the Honorable Minister had instituted, and that was helping to bridge the gap in what will have been a large lacuna in the development of talents. So I must say that the ministry has done very well to notice that there was a gap, because we don't know what happens behind the scene. And the permanent sec has explained really the should I say, administrative hiccups that happen in who is hosting and who is not hosting, all the things that have to happen. But as a sportsman, as a technocrat itself, I will just look at what really the games is bringing to us. And like you said, how we really are sports-loving people. The minister said earlier on that they expected 10,000 athletes. Let me point out that in the Olympics, as big as the Olympics is, the biggest event in the world, we have 10,500 athletes. And even Nigeria, we can gather in a festival with about 8,000 athletes. It shows that Nigeria alone is big enough to even host the Olympics. We have enough sportsmen, we have enough energy, we have enough talents to be able to host a multi-level event like the Olympic is. So I must commend the ministry for taking up the mantle to make sure that the growth in sports is not stunted. The National Youth Games has been wonderful. We had a lot of National Youth Game champions winning even in the festival. So we haven't lost so much. We lost the excitement, the blitz, the razzmatazz, the whole glamour of the festival. But with the African Youth Games, the National Youth Games, the federations holding their own events, I don't think that we missed too much in terms of developing talents. But in terms of having a festival, a property that can showcase the best of Nigerian sports, it's something that the Nigerians were lacking, and we are very happy that the Honorable Minister has brought it back. And you can see while states were reluctant to take it up over the past 6 years, we had about 4 states fiercely bidding to host the next one. So that shows that something good is happening and something really is going on right.
What are your impressions?
Could you say that again? We didn't get that.
Let's go over to Hamid, who's right there with you in Lagos, and we ask Hamid, what are your impressions, Hamid? It would seem that we're having some challenges getting to hear you there. We'll try and fix that problem with your microphone, I believe, or some other issues there. And we'll return to Lagos in just a moment. But back here in Abuja, well, so many reasons have been adduced for why it took so long and what might have Nigeria must have lost or what it might not have lost. But again, the worry is, what was it all about? Even when the federal government had decided to take the burden of it, the states were still not willing to. throw in what was expected of them. What's the big issue here? Is it finances? Is it... A lot of Nigerians would really like to know, from your perspective, what was it? What was the main issue?
You know, it was more or less like a fire brigade approach, because the decision we took was to impose on the federal government that, look, repossess this national heritage, own it. We are already having problems with it. So you need to come in and own it, reposition it so that it can take a direction. And the budgetary provisions, as at the time we took the decisions, were not within the other national budgets of the state. In fact, the funding had to come from special intervention by the president, who accepted to us. And I took time to explain to him, the significance of the National Sports Festival. It's one of the national heritages of our peace and unity in this country. The National Sports Festival, NYC, FCT. These three institutions are very, very key. So we cannot afford to abandon it. But of course, you see, like he said, there is one thing in this country we must get right. The funding of sports, whether from the attitude of the legislature down to the release of funds, have been something that it can sometimes be very, very frustrating. At a point in time, I still refer to experiences I had with the permanent secretary. At a point in time, he was asking, should we cancel the game? And I told him we can't. And he said, okay, what do? We are about 3 months to the hosting of the games, and we have no clue as to whether these funds will be released to us. And I told him, I said, what we'll do is go back to the ministry, discuss with the DFA, and see whether we can lay hands on any funds handy within us to start prosecuting some of the critical things we need to put in place before the games. I told him, I said, I know there is a tradition in sports that funds will be released on the eve of either the festival or the tournament.
Should it be so all the time?
That is one of the injustices that I kept complaining about. The right thing to do is, once an approval has been given for an event, funds should be released within the next 7 days to enable proper planning, because sports planning is one aspect of policy implementation that is mentally demanding, is stressful. It also requires widespread consultation and mobilization. So if you don't have the funds, you will not be able to do it. But nonetheless, since we had to think and look outside the box, we got what we got. And to God be the glory, the funds were released 3 days to the event. But of course, actually, since we've gotten funds to start cleaning, to start updating facilities, to start the paperwork, printing of programs, getting kits, some of the kits for our VIPs, we were not at all affected. That is the secret of the success of the 19th National Sports Festival.
All right, but we'll still hold many other festivals, and hopefully not just even this festival, but as a bureaucrat. Let's bring this now to the permanent secretary. Should the bureaucracy always work, at this slow pace as to affect things that are, supposed to be done at the time they're supposed to be done?
Thank you.
How do you oil this bureaucratic machinery to run smoothly?
Yes, we oil it in different ways. When you talk of the national budget, looking at it global, from the top, challenges may be beyond what is obvious to you at your level. So we believe there were challenges at that end, but what did we do rightly? We tried, just as the Honorable Minister said, we now try to be more innovative and creative to see aspects of it. Those that do not require much funding, and critical will commence. For instance, in events of that nature, the MOC and the LOC should meet severally to fine-tune. The MOCs is comprised of officials within Abuja and outside, like representative of the directors forum, representative of athletes, officials, federations, all of them are represented in the MOC. But because of limited funding, we at times adopted virtual communication to discuss and review. We also took to doing much of letters to inform them this is what we have done. Now, when we review the regulations for the festival, this has to be seen. It should have ordinarily been seen at a setting that everybody will be present. But hey there, look at, we don't have the resources. What do? We email it to everybody. Send in your report within a period of time to enable us put together. So instead of have 2-3 meetings, we had only one meeting. We reviewed. We had training of technical officials. You remember, for 6 years, that training did not hold because it's often held during the festival period. You cannot do anything other than that. We had to invite those funds. So we look for funds within our overhead that were released then and held the trainings. So by that adjustment, we're able to coast, and that's what supported. In fact, the role the Honorable Minister played in the success of this festival was not little at all. At odd time, we'll call on him. The minister, this is challenge we are having. Please help us put a call to this person. Please. At one time, we were having reservations as to whether the state will support. What did we do? We convened an extraordinary meeting of the National Council on Sport. Let us, we want to know, because we had 2 games that were coming. One, the National Youth Games, then the National Sport Festival. Knowing the funding challenge of states, we had to convene an extraordinary meeting. Let us know who of you will be able to attend both, and should we hold the 2? The response was beyond our imagination, because before then we have been hearing from among the states, no, we are not coming, we are not. But out of the 29 states that attended, 27 said they will be attending the sport festival. Then 23 said they will attend the National Youth Games. So we now saw 23 out of 36 is a good number. So let us go. And we now came to the National Sport Festival. 35 states and FCT attended. So which shows the enthusiasm and excitement. So the bureaucracy, we made efforts to oil it in order to encourage participation.
All right, let's try again to see if we've taken care of that glitch from our Lagos Network Center. And again, we'll return to Hamid and say, yes, we started initially, we've asked all the others their impressions of the last National Sports Festival coming 6 years after. So let's start on that note with you, Hamid. Hopefully we can hear you at this time. Hamid, are you on with us? Let's get your impressions.
Cyril, I was just saying the other time that as far as Nigeria is concerned, sports is the opium of the people. People love sports so much that, let me share a joke with you, that whenever Nigeria is playing, for example, international, even the armed robbers will get off the streets because they want to see Nigeria, play the game and win the game. So having said that, the National Sports Festival, one has to even go to the very basics. What is the objective of setting up, bringing up the National Sports Festival? One is to foster national. Have been achieved over the years. You recall that the festival itself started in 1973. First one was 1975. Then we had the junior, intermediate, and senior. And through that, we're able to get a lot of, talents that were nurtured into national or international stars. People like Bruce Jirigo, Felix Imadi, Peter Okodogbe, Opozigo, and all others. The Osman, the brothers, Ezinwa and Davidson, Innocent Egbunike, who in 1987 at the Kasarani Stadium, when we had the All-Africa Games, the late Daniel Arap Moi, the president of Kenya, named the Egbunike of Africa. Mary Onyali, a host of others. And we go to other sports, table tennis, Olawumade Kodunmi, Atanda Musa, Oshona Eke, Titus Omotara, and a lot of others that were produced by the National Sports Festival and nurtured to international stardom. So for us to have that break, I think it was not good enough. But like we all said, the ministry had really tried in salvaging what would have been a very precarious situation as far as National Sports Festival is concerned. We hosted it, it was hosted this year in Abuja. It was very good. And like my colleague said, a lot of stars have been penciled down, and these stars will be nurtured to, international stardom. And, the sports festival itself, apart from, the glamour, the excitement, it helps in bringing, in fostering national unity, cohesion, brotherliness, and people understanding, themselves outside their different cultures. So it's such a very wonderful competition. And for it to have stalled for some few years, it was not good enough. So luckily, we have this year, and kudos to the ministry.
At least good enough. Your bike is working well now, even though we'll still, fine-tune it. Still some portions seasoned there, but we'll work on that. But good, as you said, the government took it up, the federal government took it up. Another aspect of this last festival was, I think last time was in 1993. Since 1993, for the first time now, we had the private sector. We had the private sector coming in. Greenfield, yes, throwing its heart in the ring, as they say proverbially, and getting to be part of it, and this culminated into the sign of the MOU. Take us through that, the memorandum of understanding, the commitment. 5 years, is it? 5 years? Is it a 5-year commitment?
Yeah, five editions.
Right, 5 editions. Sorry.
Well, basically, after the decision of the National Council of Sports in February in Kaduna this year, we started looking at what was the problem with Calabar. Because we must try to cure the mischief that led to the failure of Calabar to host. And we discovered that funding was also one of the factors. There was also the factor of an existing administration hosting and getting a hosting right for the new administration not to have so much interest in the hosting right. And so we now said, look, let us institutionalize the National Sports Festival and get the private sector to be involved so that we can insulate it from these funding challenges. And that took us to now beginning to look for expression of interest, and Greenfield now expressed interest in the partnership. We invited them for a presentation, which they did. And after the presentation, it was reviewed technically. And after the review, a memorandum of understanding was drafted. It was sent to the Ministry of Justice, vetted, and then sent back, and we approve it, we sign it. Now, the partnership created a multi-purpose vehicle, the incorporation of a legal entity that will be the sole custodian of the resources that will be generated for the funding of the National Sports Festival. So government, if the federal government is contributing, it is going to contribute to that particular institution. Right. The private sector has responsibilities of marketing the National Sports Festival, advocacy, sourcing for even more source of funding, even expanding the frontiers of engaging more investors into the National Sports Festival. This we did because we believe that if this has been done earlier on, where it has been institutionalized, or even by a legislative fear, when the National Sports Festival had been established over some time, the issue of legislating a source of funding, which we will get there one day, because we are also looking at a situation where the National Lottery Trust Fund should now have the law amended so that it can provide stable funding for the National Sports Festival, just like the last speaker had explained. The benefits of the National Sports Festival as contained in the objectives of the festival is not something that we can afford to toy with in this country. I had argued that even if we have no money to run this country, we can run Nigeria by investing in the National Sports Festival. Because if you were at the National Sports Festival, you will be amazed by what you will see there. I went there and I became very moody and reflective because I was thinking of what we have lost in 6 years. The volume of commerce there alone, the way Nigerians made fortune, the building of relationship between the young people and bridges and bonding. These are something that money cannot be used to quantify.
All right, so it's good this MOU has been put together, but again, from experience, the signing of understanding agreements, we know from experience that all looks so nice and fine on paper, but it takes only a little time before things begin to see the cracks. So let's come to
thank you very much. Yes. There was high optimism on the part of the private sector partner that will be able to see itself through. But the reality was far different because, you know, the MOU was signed in July, and this after way into the year when most of the private sectors have had their budget concluded, even looking towards the end of the year. So approaching the other private sector for sponsorship, they say, oh, if only you had come in December, if only you had come in November, we would have included it in our budget. So when we saw that, we knew that we had a big challenge on us too. So sincerely, the private sector operator was not able to mobilize anything significant in terms of resources. But we still have faith in it, because the management of the company demonstrates so much commitment to that process, and we believe with 4 editions ahead, let us see what we'll be able to do. 2 years to prepare for the next edition.
Already our phone lines are open. I think we have a caller on the line from CALABAR, Abubakar, calling in from CALABAR. Hello, Abubakar. Abubakar, we're waiting to hear from you.
Hello, Cyril. Good evening.
Good evening. Go right ahead.
I want to sincerely greet Honorable Minister Solomon Dalung.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Cyril. Good evening. Cyril, good evening.
Good evening. Go on. Just go on.
And I want to commend the sports. I want to comment for the DCA festival, because it's very wonderful one in the country. It's very wonderful one in the country.
All right, Abubakar, let me just say this for all those others who would be calling in tonight. As we said earlier on at the start of this program, Once you see your name on screen, it means your call is through to the studio. So just go ahead and start making your point. Once you see your name has appeared on screen, that tells you that your call has been taken, it has been passed through, and all others are waiting for you to just make your point, state your position, ask a question, make a comment. So just go straight to it. That's the best way to do this. So we hope that others who will be calling in will remember that. As soon as your call is passed through, you see your name on screen, it means you can just go right ahead. And need I just mention that there are so many people who would like to get on. So once you are on, it means you should just go quickly to the point and be as brief as possible. Television time, they say, is expensive. Right. So this agreement has been signed, but let's go to our Lagos Network Center and then put this. Why is it that the private sector is a little bit reluctant, if you like, to get involved in deals, sponsorship, especially when it comes to sports? And yet, we all agree that this is one area that Nigeria should explore to the fullest.
Yeah, government alone cannot, sponsor sports. There is the need for private, public-private partnership in the development of sports. And the private sector needs to play a very prominent role along this line. Maybe the government can just throw some incentives to the private sector through tax rebate and some other things that can really, galvanize their effort into supporting, sports. So it's just basic that the government alone cannot fund sports. Sports is a very expensive, project, to fund. So private partnership, public partnership, and, the private sector must have to play a very prominent role in sports sponsorship. This happens all over the world. I mean, it's a thing that happens, everywhere. And major conglomerates, companies, practicing it, in Nigeria here, could easily, help the government, in sports sponsorship. I think it will go a very long way in really making our sports, to grow, because we need it. And like I said, sports is something that Nigerians love, and they really want to spend any time, to watch Nigerians perform very well in competitions, either locally or internationally.
The phones quickly. We have from Enugu, Ifeanyi, calling in from Enugu. Hello, Ifeanyi. Hello? Is Ifeanyi there?
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening. Yes, Ifeanyi, go ahead. Hello. All right, we'll just go right ahead with that. Well, we'll return to Lagos and put the same question to Eniofok and say, yes, we have seen private companies pump a lot of money into all kinds of television shows, all kinds of programs. Some of them, people have raised questions about whether they're leading us anywhere or they're adding value to the kind of development expected of Nigerian youths. But they are not in a hurry to pump that kind of money into sports development. What do you see is the challenge here, Eniofok?
Something that the ministry has to work on, and that is the packaging. When the packaging is not good, it's not attractive enough for companies to come in and help them and putting their money in that. The sports is generated most of the income from sports is from viewership, from advertising, and when you have a package, we won the National Sports Festival. I was the first to praise the ministry for a job well done, bringing it back after 6 years. But we cannot gloss over the fact that there are lots of things that wasn't right. And one of the things is the packaging. How do we experience it? How do we experience it in the stadium, live? How do we experience it on TV? How do we experience it online? And these are the aspects in which the ministry actually fell short. That we didn't enjoy it on TV. Enough cameras were not enough to, we couldn't see it very well. We didn't enjoy most of the interaction online. And these are the things that companies look at. They look at the logarithms. How many people are interacting? Do we have thousands of people commenting online? And once you have those things coming up, we have a lot of interaction, then companies will know that there's a market for my business. I can put in money there. And by the time they put in money there, the ministry benefits from that. So I will just suggest at the earlier stages, the ministry should have a constant budget, whether they are hosting, whatever the state is hosting, every 2 years to have a budget for the festival. And that money, like the IOC does in the Olympics, assists in different things. You don't give it to the states, but you help in accommodation, you help in security, some other things that you want to assist the states so that the burden of sponsorship won't be too heavy on the states. Then another thing that the ministry also fell short of was the use of former icons, former heroes, sportsmen. I mean, while it's all good that the ministry had a bureaucracy to take care of, the budgeting and everything, what Nigerians want to see is the people they can identify with. Who are they? And when you have in your main organizing committee, you have a set of former champions. You have the Innocent Ebunikes. You have, well, I call myself the Nephew Kudobongs. You have the Mary Onyales. You have the Ansada Musas. These are people that Nigerians watch over the years. We have this as capital that the ministry is not using. We have sportsmen, they come, they compete, they go, they retire. The ministry forgets them and continues to work with newer people. And I think that's an area that the ministry should actually try and embrace. Bring sports people together. It's a family. You don't throw them away. So once we bring them together, we gather people, and people keep on getting excited. There are lots of bank MDs or a lot of private company MDs that were kids when some of these superstars were running and competing. And once you bring them to them as the face of the festival, or these are people that started from here, they will be able to channel funds to support that. So that's one thing I think they should go into. So the packaging and the use of former champions. And I think that helps to bring the whole thing together and might encourage the public and the private sector to dip their hands in their pocket and be more supportive of ventures like the sports festival.
And in addition to that, Cyril, one other area where the ministry will have to work.
Yes, Hamid, go ahead. Right.
Go ahead. The area of spectatorship, in the stadium. If you see, I was at the opening ceremony. I was some of the events. The stadium was virtually empty. It was just the athletes watching themselves, running and jumping, diving and doing whatever. But if there had been enough publicity, for the event, definitely very many people will come into the stadium, and this will attract, the sponsors, because they are looking for where to market their products. And spectatorship is one of those areas where, people they get value for their money. So the ministry must have to work very seriously in the area of publicity that will attract people into the stadium to watch these athletes run. Even the area of spectatorship will also even encourage the athletes to even perform beyond, their normal best. That's the way I see it.
We're getting to hear a number of suggestions coming through, Minister. Packaging, the use of former, stars, and of course, the publicity. From what we're getting, more people. We would have done with more people, going to the stadium and witnessing these events. But people will tell you so many reasons, 1,001 reasons why when you have events like this, spectators don't turn up. So what is the challenge here? We're talking sports, which should interest, which should interest fairly large numbers.
I've started by mentioning the role funding plays. I mean, even magicians, they need some ornaments to throw on the ground before they will perform magic. The truth about it is that our attitude as even leaders to sport, we still see sport as recreation. we have not come to terms with some of these very positive values of sports they enumerated. And unless and until you appreciate something, you will never at all see it as something.
So where are we getting this thing about we love sports, we are united? It's just lip service.
Nigerians, the common Nigerians, like one of the speakers stated, I told the IG, I said, go and look at the crime rate from the 6th to the 10th. You will discover that it went down. Those who love sports are fellow Nigerians, but Nigerian leaders, no. Nigerian leaders, those who are involved in policy making and implementation, no. They watch sports sometimes casually from their televisions. They have not come to terms with it. Unless you were in the stadium, you will not appreciate what sports is. So our leaders must know. I mean, let me give you an example of what happened during the festival. One of the states sent contingent over 1,000 kilometers to Abuja without a dime. And when the contingent arrived at Abuja, the argument was that, okay, our governor said we will send money here. It was the policy of feeding that we initiated, where we provided foods to our athletes and officials that helped that state. And then a senator from the state, when he went there and saw the situation, he now went to Wuse Market to buy kits for the contingent. And the contingent got some gold medals. That was the situation they went through. There was a time, there was a competition here in Abuja, the National Hockey League. A female team traveled to Abuja. The state could not afford hotel accommodation for the team. They were sleeping under a staircase in the stadium. And then the same team won a bronze medal in the competition. So those who love sports are fellow Nigerians.
All right.
But Nigerian leaders,
they don't
have not come to terms with the love that the common people have for sports. And unless and until we leaders love sports just like our people do, it will continue to be lip service and hypocrisy.
All right, we'll return to that in a moment. We have another caller from Benue. Godwin is on the line. Godwin, thanks for staying on. Hello. Go right ahead. Go right ahead, Godwin. Hello. Hello, Godwin.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Patrick from Benefit.
Yes, go right ahead.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sure, we are.
Yeah. I want to find what happened that in the festival that there was power outage. So what happened that happened in the yes. I want to find out what happened. There was power outage down that day. So what's the cause of that power outage? That's my question. Thank you.
All right. Okay, that's it. Question. Perhaps the PubSec.
Thank you. I want to tell Godwin that there was never a time there was a power outage in the stadium. What he observed during the opening ceremony was light effect.
All right.
To show what was really happening. So it was a deliberate action to focus on only on the podium, so that attention should be directed to that place. It was not a power outage. In fact, I must commend the AEDC, because we visited them and we requested that they should support us and ensure there is power supply. Throughout they deploy engineers to stay with us in the stadium, and throughout the period they did not. Even when they take it, bam, within 5 minutes the power is restored. There was no power outage at all. But if you permit me to give some of the highlights of the interesting highlights of the 19th National Sport Festival. total personnel that worked for us during the period is in excess of 2,500. We had over 1,500 technical personnel that we describe as workforce. The medical team and the anti-doping team is made up of over 200 personnel. We have over 153 persons that serve in various committees. This is excluding the athletes and officials that registered of 8,861. Now, the security, each federation, 40 sporting federations that participated, came with minimum of 5 officials. That's another 200. Now, the security personnel, they were simply wonderful. They supported us. They deployed more than 1,000 personnel at every games village, the sport event centers, and even the Federal Road Safety Corps supported us in maintaining traffic for the cycling and the routes of the sportsmen and women. These are some of the things that we do. Then we now come to the results. For the first time, out of the 35 states and FCT that are present, the minimum medal won by any state was 4 bronze, except one state that did not win a medal. 34 states and FCT won at least a medal from this event. It had not happened before. And why is this so? Because we had 517 events. 570 events in 39 sporting areas. So it enlivened the process and made the festival really bubbling, because all the states now see themselves as winners.
All right, so we might as well just stay with you a moment. And while the minister was explaining certain issues about the love for sports, it just struck me that, yes, one of the reasons of signing an MOU, like he said, was to insulate the sports festival from, what happened the last time. But they say government should be a continuum. Politicians will come and go, but the machinery of government, remains. So what are the things you've put in place to ensure that when one policy comes into effect, it is not a question now of whether one party has won or another political party has won or some politician has come into office? The basics remain, because this is likely to happen again.
Yes. In fact, that is one area that I strongly commend the initiative of the Honorable Minister. As an administrator, I had wanted to test the private sector partner for one event to see if they succeed or not. But the Honorable Minister, when we reviewed the matter, he said, we are just signing the MOU in July for an event that they should have spent 2 years in preparing for. They had just 5 months. So what do you expect them to do? Let's give them a trial. Let's sign them on for 5 editions. We approached the ICRC, Infrastructure Concession and Regulatory Commission. Please review this for us and advise us on the way forward. We had several meetings, and they said, okay, we can go ahead. We signed an MOU together with ICRC. In fact, the original copy of the MOU is also deposited with ICRC as the regulation provides. So what is the objective of this? Is to institutionalize the festival. Now, with 2 years ahead to plan for 20th National Sport Festival, the private sector partner is already working, because to them, there is no time to waste. Now, why was it so challenging to mobilize support for the festival? Remember, we are dealing with a carcass. 6 years ago. In fact, then no state, during the Sport Council, we asked which state will help us to host this festival so that we can take on from there. No state expressed desire to do, because they all knew that we are dealing with a corpse that needed to be reawakened. But immediately it was reawakened, and the fun and this thing became apparent. States started jumping over the other.
Everyone loves a winner.
Now, so it
no one wants to work
and get it going. The deliberate policy of ministry not to restrict it to the traditional 25 sports, let everybody come and enjoy themselves, also promoted the need to come in. We believe that going forward, this initiative will sustain the festival.
All right, we'll take a short break here. When we return, we'll now look at the performance of the athletes and if indeed we have discovered some new talents and what will happen to them. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
Nigerians, our fearless officers and men of the Nigerian military are winning the war against Boko Haram. Today, all occupied territories have been recovered and Boko Haram has been degraded. Our affected brothers and sisters are getting their lives back. However, they are now after you and me. In our mosques, churches, schools, motor parks, markets, entertainment centers, and public gatherings. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. Nigeria, unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The struggle for independence had been a long and tough one. Our founding fathers and compatriots sacrificed their comfort and even shed their blood. We cannot at this point in history afford to spirit away their sacrifices for immediate but temporary gains of today. Let us emphasize what unites and not what divides us. Working for the unity of purpose with a stronger vision for a better tomorrow. NTA, growing with the nation.
Nigeria, the only country we can train with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and change our attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values, which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
Make you report any crooked person, object or wakajube movement to police and security agent demo.
The security of our nation now work for all of us, plus including me and you.
Nigeria, make we unite against terrorism. Now, Federal Ministry of Information and Culture bring on this message.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. Well, we took out the cameras to speak with the citizens, see how far they think about, what they think about sports and sports development. Let's go to them.
The National Sports Festival essentially helps for cohesion, intertribal cohesion, and unity. And secondarily also, secondarily, it also helps for discovery of raw new talents. In this new National Sports Festival, a 16-year-old girl actually beat more experienced athletes in the 400 meters dash. So that's something wonderful. I mean, the star has been born. A 7-year-old girl reached the final of a chess competition. Yes, and that's also another raw talent. So raw talents are found and discovered in National Sports Festival.
It's an avenue of bringing the whole nation together, the youth together. When we play together, I don't think it's easy for us to fight one another. So I think integration is the major aspect that we have been lacking as a nation. As a nation, we have been afraid of each other, you know. But when we fight in sports, I think after the sports, we become more friendly. Then, apart from that, it's another avenue of job or engagement of the youth. You know, we're talking about youth restiveness and all those things. And by the time you get a lot of people involved in sports, there are a lot of chains of opportunity involved in sports, both for the youth and for adults.
What we can really achieve are quite enormous in the areas of international competitions, the Olympics, the Commonwealth Games. If we don't annex the talent we have from the grassroots, it will be difficult to win international competitions. I'm surprised for many years the National Sports Festival was more like abandoned, you know, but reawakening such awareness is good because we have so many talents across the country. And sports, you know, is one of the things that unite Nigeria, especially football. And, you know, the area of athletics, this, you know, apart from physical fitness and all that, we have so much we can gain.
This national sports fair improved the economy of Nigeria. You should know if you go to stadium, a woman is frying yam in the market, he sell and he get something to go to to feed his family at home. A pure water seller, maybe he sell 1 bag a day, but today he said 10 bag, 15 or 20. It proved the economic wise, unity wise. The sport festival, at least I would suggest to the federal government the thing should be monthly.
Well, the voice of the people monthly, Minister, I don't know about that. But anyhow, it just tells you how passionate people can be about this. And well, let's turn to the events that featured at the festival proper. Well, we're looking at the medals haul. We see Delta coming tops with well over 300 medals, well over 300 medals. And big winners include Rivers, Edo, Lagos, Bayelsa, Akwa Ibom. But of course, one state did not participate, Katsina. And Ebonyi also scored nothing. What was the challenge with Katsina? Would the minister know?
Well, I think we cannot speak for Katsina.
Probably they had no athletes whatsoever or something like that.
It is not correct to argue that they have no athletes.
Right.
It boils down to what I said earlier on, that they might have not seen sports as a factor that can create wealth. Just like if you look at it from the medal table, I can say conveniently that at the National Sports Festival in Abuja, we have produced over 200 millionaires from this medal table, because there are states that offered 1 million to each gold medalist. Some states 500. This is just from participation. And then we go back to commerce. Just like he said, you cannot evaluate the number of millionaires that we met in the sales that were made there. So for the National Sports Festival, we can say that at least 200 to 250 millionaires were produced in Abuja. So if Katsina did not participate, of course, go and look at the GDP of Katsina in the month of December. You will discover that
they lost out.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so let's. We have seen just how many. Have an idea of how many big pockets were created. Now let's look at how many fantastic athletes have shown up from this festival. And let's go to our Lagos center, where we have those two internationals, and they can tell us, because they would obviously have been watching out for those talents, the standard of the athletes at that sports festival. Eniofok, let's begin with you.
Yes, I will go to my bias, which is track and field athletics. As you will know, well, you didn't mention at the beginning, I am an Olympic gold medalist, so maybe I should say that in front of Nigerians so that they know that where I'm coming from. There's a young lady who is 15 years old that won the 400 meters in 52 seconds. That's an amazing time in anywhere in the world, a world-class standard time. And she beat all those more experienced athletes, some of them that have been to Olympics, some of them that have been to the African Championship. And that's an amazing discovery. In fact, it's a phenomenal discovery if we realize that it's the first year in which she was competing. She ran 57 seconds in her first ever event in the National Youth Games. And in the finals, won the Youth Games with 55 seconds. Came to Abuja, ran 55 seconds in the heats, 53 seconds in the semifinals, and 52 seconds in the final. So we can see the progression for a 15-year-old girl, and that was amazing. And to me, that's the most outstanding performer in. I ran the 400 meters, so I know how difficult it is to run, and how such a young 15-year-old girl can master such a race and run. So that's amazing. We also had a 7-year-old chess guy. The lady that did very well entered the finals. We had Nimrod, the 19-year-old table tennis player that upstaged the veteran 7-time Olympian Funke Oshunaike. So these are discoveries that we found out in the festival. But may I also just put in there that because a lot of arguments have been coming around the nation, that the festival as it is now today, as it's remodeled, is not just about discovery. It's about showcasing. We have the National Youth Games that discovers athletes. We have the age group tournament in every federation that discovers people. Now, this is our prima donna event. It showcases the best we have. And that is why I'm very sure the ministry in its wisdom has allowed it to be open. Look, if you're a Nigerian, anywhere you are in the world, come and showcase your talents. And let Nigerians feel you, see you, not just on TV, but live. And it's a great thing that no matter where you come from the US, from Australia, from England, you're Nigerians, you come to Abuja, you come to Nigeria to compete. Then we have a young girl from the village in Uyo or from the suburbs of Lagos to compete against you and still do better than you do. Then that just shows that we have talents here, and we shouldn't be complaining like you did, Cyril, at the beginning of the show about London 2012. We really shouldn't go back to 2012. We should be thinking in Tokyo 2020, how many of these people are we going to get that can give us 5 medals of any color, any shape, any size. And Nigerians will be very proud and say that, look, we have benefited from the largesse of the festival returning to our country.
Throwing it open, was that why you still had such such veterans like Shonaike and Toriola still playing?
Yes, I didn't get the first part of the question, but with veterans coming in like that, it's very good for the festival. One, it's good for the marketability of the festival. And secondly, it just shows that there's a little bit, there was a stunted growth in our sports development in production of talent. You see, you don't retire, they tell you, you don't retire a sportsman. The only way a sportsman will retire is if he is defeated, because sports is all about winning. The moment you stop winning, you retire. Now, if the veterans like Toriola have been going since 1985, and for the past 20 years, for the past 25 years, for the past 30 years, it's because they haven't been defeated. So we need to nurture younger ones, better ones, to come and send them to retirement. And that's the way a sportsman will be happy to retire when he sees someone that he has mentored along the years, and to do better than she does or he does. Can we have the volume, please?
About whether, you're grooming people and you're raising the standard. So, because you would expect that by now, a lot of these younger kids would knock out the veterans. Well, Hamid, you're just right there. So let's hear from you. 100 meters, you're tough. Were you impressed?
The 100 meters was keenly contested for, and the winner emerged with 10.2 something, yes, which is not a very bad time. But let me quickly commend the ministry once again, because I don't know what would have happened if we had not had, the youth games, and for that break, a national sports festival to just come just like that, perhaps we will not have been able to see the standard that we witnessed, in the national sports festival. So kudos to the ministry for having, foresight of the youth games. Having said that, these talents that are discovered, I am particularly very happy because you agree with me that over the years, what used to be, our strength in most of the events is now being depleted. Some other African countries are catching up fast, on us. Kenyans, Ghanaians, Ethiopians, the Ivorians, which where we used to be the top, in some of these events, 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters, 800 meters. You just see some other African countries, coming up. And so, if we are able to, harness the talents that have been discovered in this particular festival, I think the sky is the limit for us, because the boys and girls will be able to train very well under the supervision of highly qualified coaches who know the modern trend in coaching. Not coaches that will be armchair coaches who will sit in the offices, will not be able to discover talents. If we're able to harness these talents, definitely Nigeria sports, will rise again, especially in track and field.
Staying with the track and field, especially with, those races, for instance. We look at the times that, the athletes were returning, and we look at the times on the international circuit. Are we pleased with that these times we're returning locally are good enough, so we don't end up having stars, and when they go out for international meets, they find out that the standard is way beyond?
Well, let me pick up from where they started building with the National Youth Games. It was not easy for us to revive the National Youth Games. The National Youth Games, the first year we had it, we had 90 million voted for it in the budget. Meanwhile, the previous edition, the first edition, was funded with 350 million. Again, we had to go sourcing for funds before we hosted, because like I said, I told them that it is injustice for us as leaders to deny the young people. And when we went to Ilorin for the first time, I shed tears. Because, the excitement when these youth gathered and they were jumping, hugging themselves, and I looked back and I said, look at what we have done to our youth. Now, the product of the National Youth Games in the past 3 years had been the savior of Nigeria in international competition. When we went to the African Youth Games, it was our products from the National Youth Games that brought most of the medals we came with. When we went to the Youth Olympics, they were the same set of people. And like one of the speakers mentioned, this young girl who joined the last National Youth Games at the age of 67 now, who went to semifinals in chess. The young girl medal in bronze at the National Youth Games. That is an investment that, with proper investment and guidance, Nigeria will dominate chess globally, because she is going to set a record. Back to your question. Of course, we deliberately had also people on ground to try to take stock of these records, and we monitor it alongside with the global records so as to determine those that we can now profile for immediate investment for the next international competition, which is the Olympics. There are those that will now be long-term investment, because this was what was lacking. And like the Olympian said, you see, we left this one open. There were so many criticisms, and they said, oh, why would the minister leave it open? Oh, why would professional come and compete? And I said, no. For 6 years, this festival has not taken place. Any professional who has gone and medal internationally should come home and test his record. And of course, so many of them came and knew that those records are now outdated, because very young people, very young people defeated them.
All right, we'll return to you. We have Umar Anache calling in from Birnin Kebi. Umar, this of course is one topic you'd be interested in. Let's hear you.
Yes, good evening, Cyril.
Evening.
And the sport minister there. Sport should be seen as investment. And it should be seen as a symbol of unity. You see, when Nigeria is playing, you see everybody wishing Nigeria best. Now, the issue of sport in Nigeria is based on the way sport representatives are being selected. I think once it comes to sport, there should be a kind of politics removal. They should remove politics out of the team. Maybe the most talented person will come from Sokoto or Birnin Kebbi or Arugungu or anywhere. You see, once you want to select the best, you should remove politics out of it. In terms of selecting players, if you are constituting national team, you should remove politics. You should base it based on performance. Yes, may God continue to bless our country. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Umar. Right, I'm saying.
Thank you. Permit me to add two experiences. The Honorable Minister told me this first one when I came to the ministry. He was watching an athletics competition, and one small boy came out that he too could run. They now kitted the boy with spike shoes and the gadgets of an athlete. Go to the field and run. He could not do anything. He could not run. When he came back, he removed the shoe. He entered the field, he beat them.
Right.
So what does that show? It showed that the young man only needed a little training to get used to the modern way of doing the sport to excel. Now, coming to the benefit of some of the remarkable outcomes of the sport festival, this 19th sport festival, there is a particular athlete, Rosemary, was a product of the National Youth Games, came to the African Youth Games, won gold medal in 100 and 200 meters. We went to the Youth Olympic Games. She was denied 200 meter participation in 200 meters, but she ran 100 meters. She won gold medal. But what happened at the sports festival? She did not win. She was fifth position. What did that show? If this festival has not held, we would not have known that we even have other persons that could compete. Probably she was lethargic about the project, thinking she's already on top of it. But the lesson she has now learned is that I must work very hard in order to maintain my position. So the Youth Festival has achieved, in fact, a total of 59 new national records were set.
Yes, sir.
42 of these were in weightlifting, 15 in swimming, and 2 in parapowerlifting. So new athletes are brought to the stream to compete with the existing ones in order to show that we are there. So it's achieving its purpose.
Now, one phenomenon that many Nigerians noticed at the festival is that you had people going to other states, or representing other states than you would have thought they would be representing. Yes, some have said, it's good for integration. Have Etoriola competing for Akwa Ibom State, and have somebody else compete for another state. I say it's good for integration. But others say, is this integration short-lived, temporary, just for the games, so as to get hold of medals and go rise in the medals table? Would it continue on other aspects? For instance, if athlete A today goes to compete for state B, after a festival, would athlete A now be considered as a citizen of state B? These are the questions people have raised. Minister.
Well, you think, let me sincerely say, it's a healthy development. If I were an athlete, I would have also gone to compete for either Akwa Ibom or any state.
All right.
The reason is very simple. If states fail to invest in their athletes, they suffer in an open arrangement like this. If you look at Katsina did not participate. But if you go to the participation and look at even some of the athletes that won gold medals in other sports, they are traditionally from Katsina.
Okay.
So, it's the political economy of the festival that played out. Now, with the medal table now, states will have to look at it very well. In fact, there was a dispute between Edo and Kano that became very fresh.
Right.
An athlete is from Kano, but he went and contested and competed for Edo. And when he went, he won a gold medal. Edo came and said, no, this is our athlete, we have done this, we have done that. Kano was arguing. But the point is, which state did the athletes register?
Right.
And that state got the medal. This we allow it deliberate because if we have not done it this way, most of the states will not see reason why they should invest in. But this particular result, as it is now, put most of the states on their heels. I was on a social media chat, and the youth were telling, one of the youth, the states, they were telling their governor, that you embarrass us at the National Sports Festival because what is happening there, we're not satisfied. We don't think when you come for votes, we will listen to you.
Right. So this is it's a wake-up call. Let's go back to our Lagos studio and get their perspective on this. Any folk?
This open festival, and as an athlete, I feel it's very good for athletes to be free to represent any state that decides to sponsor them. You see, when a festival is closed, as it had been some time ago, when you compete for a state and then you are no longer eligible for further festival competition, the states abandon you. They don't treat you, they don't employ you, they don't give you any form of funding to help your career in different kind of ways. But when the festival is open, it opens course for employment. Now an athlete can go, and no matter how many festivals he's gone, as long as the state sees that he's still useful in the festival or in sports, they give him employment. So this helps to engage youth to increase employment among the states. So I don't see it as some people say as mercenary. I don't see you're not mercenaries, we're all Nigerians. You can reside in any state, you can be in any state. The truth, like the Honorable Minister said, a state must invest in you, and if a state doesn't invest in you, you move to another state, and where they appreciate and they appreciate what you're doing and what you will do. So from an athlete's point of view, I feel it's very good for employment. I feel it's very good, healthy relationship. I feel it will improve the economy of the sportsmen, which are the vital thing in whatever festival we're doing. Because if State A decides that, okay, we will pay your school fees.
All right. Good. Oh dear. I hope we haven't lost that audio contact yet. Oh dear. I hope. I'd like to go straight to Hamid right there in Lagos and say, taking from what has just been said, as it is at the local level, so shall it be at the international level. Because, you see, Hamid, can you hear me? What we are saying here is, if we say, fine, if one state does not want to invest in an athlete, they're free to go to another athlete. The lesson here is if Nigeria fails to invest in its athletes, they would go to other countries. And that's what we see at international meets, and we say, oh, these are Nigerians. Why are they competing for other countries? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, Hamid.
As exactly what is happening. You find out that some Nigerians are even running for Bahrain. They are running for some other countries because they feel that the country has not invested in them much, and they feel that the country has not appreciated them, and so they go to other countries that are ready, to sponsor them. Some of them, are giving, training allowance, feeding allowance, medicals, and things like that. So if Nigeria is not ready, they readily will go to other countries, to run for other countries. That's why you see some of them bearing names in Nigeria, wearing, the colors of other countries. I think it's a lesson for us in Nigeria to really invest in our sportsmen and women, so that they can perform for us, optimally, especially at the Olympic Games, All Africa Games, and the Commonwealth Games. And you don't forget the fact that the Africa Games is just by the corner. It's next year. So some of these athletes that are discovered in National Sports Festival can be groomed, to stardom, so that they can represent us very well, plus the others that we have on ground who will be able to, showcase, the talent and make sure that Nigeria, come tops.
It's both ways, actually.
Yeah, it's not even limited to Nigeria. It is to Africa generally. Because I had a cause to complain to the IOC president in the Commonwealth Games, where the entire tracks were occupied by black people. But they were citizens of either UK, US, and Canada, India. All the trans black people. None of them was representing even Africa. So I said, look, we will work up one day with this international competition. Athletics will be Africans, but they will be citizens of the world. Just like, Africa won the World Cup, but it's kept in custody in France. So it's an African problem. And we have not been investing well in our athletes, to be very honest. When I came on board, I introduced this issue of if you win a gold medal, you have $5,000. If you win bronze, silver, you have $3,000. If you win bronze, you have $2,000. This is in addition to the payment of your daily allowances throughout the competition, your flight ticket, your upkeep. Now, this we have maintained. And I did not handle it hypocritically. Each time we are going for competition, the budget for the gold medals is also taken alongside. You are getting your gold medal, the next day I will hold a session and reward all those that got this. We have also ensured that the kitting of athletes. When we went to the Commonwealth Games, a journalist told me that, look, Minister, I have been in sports for more than 25 years. This is the first time Nigerians were well kitted. So it's been like, you see, the issue of welfare of athletes has been something that wasn't handled very well. Sometimes you carry athletes, money voted for the athletes, and then you go there. The money is either handed over to the federation, and the federation will now introduce a second standard. The first standard is the budget standard which the ministry introduced. You go, the federation will bring their own standard. At the end of the day, the athletes will not be paid. They will say, okay, after the game, go, we will thereafter get back to you. And nothing happens. These are some of the things that send our athletes out. But I think in the past 3 years, we have recorded quite a great improvement. And we're even having Nigerians outside volunteering to represent the country. So I think the issue is both sides, but more budgetary provision for sports. Sports is not a very cheap project.
All right, and so as we've always talked about the funding for sports and the need to put more money into it, about 40 events were this last games. About 40, right?
39.
39. Yeah. Okay, 39. And I'm sure it wasn't that easy to cope with 39.
At all.
Okay. And so let's talk about facilities. And moving from that, how can we improve on the facilities, maintain the facilities? Because there were some people who weren't quite sure that this festival would take place at the Abuja National Stadium, because they said, look, let's open the gates and see the state of facilities in that stadium. And there are those who say, okay, yes, those things have worked now, and after the festival, they are shut down again, and perhaps until maybe another festival or some other event comes up before the gates are open or the facilities are maintained. Where do we go from here?
Thank you, Siri. And in fact, it has been a worry and concern, because the resources were provided, a substantial chunk of it went into facilities maintenance and revival. The National Stadium, when we got there, was the structure, the physical structure is good, but arising from aging, some of the facilities are not in pristine condition. So we needed to do a lot of touching up to put them back. Now we have spent the money. What happens thereafter? I was passing by on my way home yesterday. I kept late, and I was passing by. I just saw the whole place like a ghost town again. I said, look at it on Sunday. The place was bubbling. The place was. I put a call through to my colleague in charge of facility. Please ensure that this place is lit. Of course, our average electricity bill for when there were no events is upward of 11 million a month. Now, with all the facilities now put there, the chillers, the pumps, the water line, everything on it, definitely is beyond what the ministry can carry. Because what we have for maintenance of the stadium cannot even pay the electricity bill for 5 months.
So what happens? Facilities go, they go to waste again, go to rust again.
The ministry, the Honourable Minister is quite concerned about it. Government is quite concerned. What we are doing, we have commenced the process of concession also on the stadium. We are starting with Lagos. The process is on. There is an athlete hostel in the package B of the National Stadium that had not been completed. If this hostel is functional, it will have been serving as Games Village, which will have attracted athletes, even if not around the globe, within the continent to the stadium to make continuous use of it. In the 2019 budget, it's our hope that the proposal we made for the funding of the concessionary process will be sustained. If it is sustained, we will be able to conclude that process as pilot to see how effective it is. One thing that the Honourable Minister said, PAMSEC, I have no interest in this project other than to see it succeed. So I want you to bring your team together, ensure that we get the best hand to do this. So if this is done and we succeed in getting it right, we know we'll be able to put the stadium in good condition to
Before we come to the minister to talk about that, let's go to the professionals in Lagos and say, look, state of facilities has always been a sore point. All over the country, you see that. Yes, the festival comes up, a lot of money is put into reviving, resuscitating the facilities. Shortly afterwards, those things just go. The next thing you find, those grounds become places for non-sporting activities, revival services, stuff like that that have nothing to do with the development of sports. The facilities begin to decay. Where do we go from here?
The first thing in any hosting document, any bid document worldwide now, is sustainability and legacy. So what happens after hosting? One of the biggest problems we've had, especially in the International Olympic Committee section, is the Athens Olympics. It was such a grandiose event, and then after that, the whole arena is decayed and bad. And the IOC has said that we don't want that to repeat itself. We don't want government spending money and wasting money. So the same can be said in the National Festival, in our country as a whole. Is what is the sustainability, what is the developmental plan, and how do we have a legacy behind. So things must be done. First of all is that I somehow would have faulted the hosting of our festival in a big stadium like Abuja Stadium. Like Amid had said earlier on, it showcased the emptiness of the stadium. Something smaller and something manageable would have been better, where people can use all the time. But what was lacking in the festival and what should have been on is a technical study group. People finding out what is happening there, what can go right and what can go wrong, and what should happen thereafter. And that's very key. We had some good things. We had some problematic things. For example, the athletes were camped very far away from the stadium. That's a big problem. A study group should have said, no, we can't have that distance from our athletes to here. Then when the stadium is used, what events are taking place? How many events are taking place? Are there schools? Are they involved in that? Can we open it up for schools? Can we open it up for non-sporting activities? Somehow, the facility must be used. It shouldn't always be thinking in the sense that it must be used for sporting facilities, because sometimes we may not make profit from there, we might not be able to maintain it. But do we put the National Stadium, for example, 4 times a year for a concert, for a public concert? These are things that a study group can take and say, look, we must sustain this, it must be used, it must not be abused, or else we will lose it.
From discovering talent, it's to also, make sure that the hosting state, develop, their sporting facilities. But they did not at that time envisage the fact that when you develop those facilities and those facilities will just be lying fallow, those facilities will not be maintained. I think one of the major problems we have with our facilities in Nigeria is lack of maintenance. If we maintain these facilities, even if they are out of use, if you maintain them, anytime that the sportsmen and women want to use them, they'll be handy, for usage. It will not be a situation in which the ministry will have to spend, millions of naira to revive some of the decaying. Because if the facilities are not used, they keep on getting, very bad. Go to the National Stadium today, you will see that the tracks have started peeling off because of lack of, maintenance and usage. So I think when we put these facilities into constant use and we maintain them and we draw crowd, spectators will come to the stadium. The stadium itself, it likes noise. It likes, camaraderie. It likes, a situation in which people, enjoy themselves. But when everything is silent, the stadium too will go dead.
Drawing from what the PAMSEC says, even the lighting alone is electricity is likely to gulp a lot of the resources you have for maintenance. What's going to happen? Certainly you wouldn't let that place become like a ghost town again.
Well, like I stated at the beginning of this discussion, that it is determination that drives leadership. And leadership is about problem solving. I believe that the concept of the National Stadium, right from beginning, did not even contemplate the Nigerian environment. It was more or less a political project.
Right.
The architecture, the entire architecture has no local content. The stadium as it is now is an integrated complex that you need a certain level of power to power the entire stadium on. And if you do not get that particular power supply, everything compromised. You cannot even pump water to the pitch. You see, the pitch at the National Stadium the grass will always dry. Unless and until you address the issue of power. Now, this would have been that those who conceived the stadium would have also foreseen this problem and develop for the stadium its own independent power. This could have addressed the problem. Now, coming back to how do we intend to solve the problem? We're not enjoying a very good budgetary support in terms of maintenance of the stadium, because the initial contract maintenance contract signed with the contractor was 2 billion naira per year. And government at a point in time now could not and therefore discontinued. The paltry budgetary allocation we have been having for the maintenance of that place cannot even pay utility bills. But what we have been doing is to ensure that the little we have, we keep maintaining critical component of the stadium. Now, in doing that, we have been able to keep some of the components, updating it. Back to the usage. You see, when you want to locate a stadium, you look at the crowd environment. If this national stadium were built somewhere where those who love sport live, you don't need a crowd.
But Minister, take Lagos for instance. With all its population and everything in Lagos, the stadium suffered a similar fate for a long time.
No, you know what happened? There was the politics of the stadium in Lagos. And it is that politics that led to the emergency of putting up Abuja, which was even cited where it is now. You cited a stadium where if you are going to now play a match, you need to even go and mobilize crowd to come. Because of the distance, it is so isolated from where people who love sports live. I mean, how could somebody from Nyanya, who is a lover of football, will now have to travel against traffic to come to the National Stadium and after match leave back to Nyanya or Gwagwa? These were some of the things that were not taken. But nonetheless, we are heading towards getting the place concession. Right. We are also heading towards, we've engaged some study and our experts to take a good look at the whole thing again and advise on a better way of what we will put this infrastructure to better use.
If I might ask, have you finally resolved the issue of the velodrome?
Yeah. The velodrome was used during the National Sports Festival, but it took some form of madness for us to solve the problem, because it got to a point that rational thinking was no more important. So I had to now at least develop some form of madness and then send threats that if they were not coming to evacuate those cylinders there, I'm going to hire a truck to come myself, supervise over the evacuation, and we can take it to anywhere and throw it. If they are going to court, they should continue. We continue in court. We get lawyers and continue. It was kindly enough for us. The Emir of Nasarawa now, the then Minister of Environment, said, no, my brother, we don't need to get to that level. And it was the madness that ignited action. So they came and evacuated the gas cylinder, and we used developed them for the first time for this National Sports Festival.
All right, so for the concluding minutes of this program, we would spend more time with you talking about the preparations. You listened to Hamid there, I said, look, the Africa Games, what are we preparing for? Yes, we may say we have revived the National Sports Festival, we have the Youth Festival, we have all those in place, but we have international, meets coming up. What have we prepared for, and how are we preparing for them?
But I'm yet to take the report of the National Sports Festival, but it is what I am expecting. From the report of the committee that assess the performance of the athletes, I mean, we are on a very good footing because we already have materials to work with handy. We have also directed the various federations to now begin to work on the choice of these athletes, take them into their training programs in preparation for the international competition we have ahead. What we will do is to try to now roll out training programs for the athletes that we have discovered, because there are records, there are national records now that we can compare effectively with international records. So we don't need to invest too much now on them. So All we are going to do is the federation should not give us the names of these people and they begin to go for competition qualifiers while training and camping and the training will go on.
All right. Well, let's go to Lagos and we take the closing comments quickly of Hamid and in Norfolk as we prepare for, coming events. What is your final take?
My final take is, first of all, I will give kudos to the ministry and the job well done. I do not know the composition of the study group that the minister is waiting for the report, but from what I know is that a lot of ex-internationals and knowledgeable people were not really involved in this, and this kind of report from the technical people that will give you the next stage and the next step in preparing athletes for the Commonwealth or for the African Games. And we should also know that you asked, what are we preparing for? The cycle in sports, in generally, apart from probably football, is the Olympics. The football, probably the World Cup. So the long run from whatever we have from this sports festival, the long run is what happens in Tokyo 2020. After that, we now reassess and see how well we've done. So whatever the study group tells us, we must have a template, a plan that helps the athletes that we've discovered, the record holders that we've done. We must still invest in them. No matter what it is, we must still invest a lot of money in them. We must invest in their coaches. We must invest in wherever they are training. And if they are in school, we must invest in things that will reduce the burden of especially those outside the country that are working and are training, that will reduce the burden of work. And that way, we'll be sure that the biggest report card we'll get will be in Tokyo 2020 after the Olympics. The African Games and everything else before then will be a test run to see how well we are doing. And I hope that the ministry and the Honorable Minister, in his own wisdom and whatever he's doing, will be able to put up a plan that can incorporate people, not just in investing in their training, investing in even mentors and former athletes and people to help them out.
And apart from that, I think the ministry should also concentrate on, apart from the athletes that will be groomed for the next international competition, which is the All Africa Games, the ministry should also concentrate on the training and retraining of the coaches. The coaches must be abreast of what happens in modern sports, They must know the rules and regulations because these rules are dynamic. They keep on changing. If the coaches don't know, how would the athletes, know? So the coaches must have to be trained and retrained so that they can be able to impart that the knowledge in the athletes for styling performance, especially in the All Africa Games and the Tokyo Olympic Games 2020.
Final note, watching those athletes, did you have goose pimples thinking about the past years?
Of course I did. Yes, I did.
And well, you failed to mention the fact that I too was an Olympian. I captained Nigeria to the Olympic Games in Moscow, 1980. Yeah. So we are two Olympians here.
And finally, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry.
Yes, we sincerely thank Nigerians for the appreciation of the little effort we put in. It is our expectation that this foundation that is laid now will be surpassed by Edo State. So we look forward to a brighter and a joyous 2020.
All right. So, and well, it is on that note we must end this conversation and say thank you to all of you. In our Lagos Center, we had Hamid Adu, former national and African champion 100 meters. Hamid has been so many things, of course. Veteran journalist and, of course, the former Olympian in Norfolk, Udo Ubong. Well, just to mention, as Hamid said, he was captain of the Olympic team at one point in time. Also a former general manager, NTA Sports. So keep the fires burning, both of you. Thank you for coming on this program. Right. And for the PAMSEC, we thank you for being here. And Minister, it's always a pleasure to host you on our programs. Well, we like this look, I think.
Nobody is just temporary.
Temporary, yeah. So we'll soon go back to the regular look.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Minister.
It's a pleasure too.
Right. And so thank you too for being part of this program. Next week we'll reach you again on NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stover. Bye for now.